Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of One Pot for All. Wow, it's been a long time. It's been a long time since I've talked to you, and I did not plan on being away from podcasting for such a long time. It's almost been a year, and that's just too much. It does not feel right. It does not feel good. But, well, life got in the way, and a lot of things changed in my life, and I did not adapt as quickly and as easily as I wanted to. But you know what? I'm back and this is happening. And when I thought about what could be like the first comeback episode, what could I be talking about? I thought, an update on my life would be interesting, but I don't think it really is. But then I thought, I could at least talk about the learnings and the experiences I've made. But I wanted to come back with something very comfortable, with something that feels familiar and that might be interesting for a lot of people. And that might also be something that has to do with current events. And I thought, you know what? I did it last year. I'm just going to do it again this year. So today we'll be talking about the Academy Awards 2024. And yes, if you ask me, I think this year's nominees have so much to offer, and I think it's just a great variety of good movie making, especially compared to last year's nominees. I just feel like this year's list of nominees is much stronger. I can't really put my finger on it, and I think we might be figuring this out together while I'm going to be talking about the individual movies, but I definitely think this year's movies are definitely worth talking about and analyzing and reviewing. So I just think we should get started with number one, and that's The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. So The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar was the first movie I watched just in preparation for the Academy Awards. I had watched Oppenheimer and Barbie when they came out in the summer, but as their nominations were not official back then, I kind of don't count it as, prep for the Oscars. I just really wanted to see these movies, and we're going to be talking about them later. But the first movie I really officially watched when I had made my own very personal list of movies I want to watch in preparation for the awards show was The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. And it is nominated for a live action short. It's 39 minutes long, which I really enjoyed. Honestly, these days, watching shorter movies is giving me so much joy because honestly, when I see a movie is 3 hours long or even 3.5 hours long, I get so tired, so immediately tired. I'm like, when am I going to fit that one in? And yes, we're going to be talking about these kinds of movies later. But honestly, 39 minutes. Awesome. And manageable. So that's the first big plus. But then also, of course, the cast of the movie were amazing. I mean, it stars Benedict Cumberbatch and Ralph Fiennes and a handful of other amazing actors, and they really brought everything to the table that you would expect from a Wes Anderson movie. Not sure I mentioned that before, but yeah, it's a movie by Wes Anderson, and you could tell really quickly without reading up on it because, of course, you have the amazing bright pastels and you have the symmetry and everything that makes Wes Anderson who he is and why we love his movies. And just to give you I don't know, an opinion before I start talking details, I thought it was a fine movie. It did not amaze me, it did not blow me away, but it was a fine watch, and I think you could definitely, take something with you from that movie, which is always a big, big plus. So yeah, I talked about the cast, they were amazing. And Ralph Fiennes acts as the narrator of the story, and having narration in a movie is always a tricky thing. But they really set it up perfectly. They put him in a great chair, made him look like someone who was really dedicating his life to narrating the story of Henry Sugar. So it worked. It really worked really well. And I liked it. And I thought it really, made the movie pop because without it, I think would have been a bit flat. So the narration is a big, big plus in this movie. And I also really liked the theatrical style of the movie. So you could sometimes see the change of stage sets. It felt like you were in a theater just watching them change the sets and just put different backgrounds into the frame. And it was kind of interesting because you felt like, oh, am I in a theater? No, I'm actually in bed at home. Also really comfortable, but yeah, I did really enjoy that because, I don't know, it just reminded me of my theater past and that felt really nice. But it also brought something to the table in terms of just creativity because I always like the behind the scenes kind of look in movies and I don't know, just made it special, I think. And I just realized I totally forgot to mention that I didn't want to mention the plot of this story. Because, this movie has a very unique and very strange story. And because it's so short, I think you can experience it on your own. I could definitely give you a summary of what it's about, but it's definitely about overcoming the normal human abilities of achieving certain things. I'm going to leave it at that. But watch it, experience it yourself, and then make up your minds if you think it's too bizarre or it's actually a great experiment. I'd be really intrigued to hear what you think about this movie and the plot of this movie. So if you want, leave a comment below if you're listening to this on YouTube, because I would really like to know what you thought about this movie. So I'm not going to comment any further on the plot of this movie, but talk about a few things that I still want to mention. I don't know how you like text on screen. It can go really well and really wrong at the same time. I've seen movies where I really liked it in the beginning and then it just took over the entire movie and I really wouldn't have needed that. But I think for this movie, it really worked. It just gave you a sense of direction and it just made you understand what was happening, when and where. So text on screen for this one, amazing. And at the end of the day, there is, of course, the other very unique way to talk to the audience, and that's breaking the fourth wall. And they did this with this movie, and it also worked surprisingly well. So you have narration, text on screen, and breaking of the fourth wall. It's a lot. And it's a lot for 39 minutes. But it works. It really works really well. So I highly recommend checking this out. It's short. It has a great cast. It has a great style. Of course, it's Wes Anderson. Come on. And even if you don't like The Grand Budapest Hotel or any other Wes Anderson movies, give it a try. Because it's so short, you might fall in love with him. So, you know what? If you want to watch a movie about being mindful, changing your life, and maybe doing the impossible, I think The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar is something worth checking out. And just as a little disclaimer, I wanted to mention that I'm myself not the biggest Wes Anderson fan. I have my favorites, and yes, I'm thinking about The Grand Budapest Hotel because it's a masterpiece. No discussion necessary. But quite recently, a couple of months ago, I watched The French Dispatch. And you guys, that was not my movie. I really didn't enjoy it. I was not thrilled. I didn't like it, but I gave him another chance with The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, and so can you. I think, sometimes you're just disappointed by the directors you like or the actors you like because maybe it's just not your kind of material, but I think you can give The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar a chance, and I think it's not a wrong choice to make. All right, so movie number 2 we're going to be talking about today is NYAD. And I had not heard about this movie before I set up my Oscar prep list, and I was pleasantly surprised. It's nominated in 2 very important categories, and that's Best Leading Actress for Annette Bening and Best Supporting Actress for Jodie Foster. So 2 powerhouses, and you're like, oh, okay, why haven't I heard about this movie? And then I realized it's based on a true story, and I haven't even heard about the true story. So yeah, I was overall really, really surprised, and I'm very excited to talk about this today. But this time I'll talk about the plot of the movie first. So the movie is about Diana NYAD. She is a professional athlete. She's a swimmer, and she wants to swim from Cuba to Florida at the age of 60-something on her own, without a break, without stopping, without any sensible pausing. So sharks, my first thought. Sharks and other poisonous animals, water, a lot of water, no breaks. Why? These were the questions I was having. Actually, as I mentioned earlier, I was very stunned not to know about this person and this challenge and this crazy thing she did before, because it happened quite recently. It was in 2013. So why haven't I heard about her? This cannot be true. What? But then I read up on it, and of course it's true, but why did I miss that? How did I miss that? Because that's a huge achievement and really something I would never want to do. But yeah, so first of all, you start with this amazing storyline and you're like, what? But yeah, this is really what happens in this movie. So of course, it starts being really emotional and inspiring. And also I was very surprised to like it that much because, a sports biopic is not the first movie I would pick as a favorite. And this is not my favorite movie. This has not become my favorite movie, but it's a good, solid movie. And I did not see that coming. Usually when I watch these Oscar movies, there is like 2 or 3 movies that I don't forget about, which I really like, but there's never like this, oh my God, this is going to be my favorite movie thing. It happens like every 10 years. It didn't happen this year, but still, what I'm trying to say is this movie didn't really let go of me. I kept thinking about it the days after I had watched it, and I don't know. I feel like if a movie does something like that to you, that's always a good sign. So yeah, I was extremely surprised, and I think it just hit the right notes. And it was not a very surprising movie in terms of what it was like. It was not an unconventional movie. It was actually a pretty conventional movie, and it didn't like blow me away in terms of creativity. No, but you know what? I really don't mind. A movie doesn't always have to surprise me with, I don't know, the artsy style or the different kind of like framing things or filming things. I really like normal, conventional movies, and I really enjoyed it. And maybe I enjoyed it because of that. So if you're looking for something new, this movie is not it. But if you're looking for something that you can just, you can just have a watch and enjoy, this might be it. And as I said, this movie is a conventional hero's journey, sports biopic, but what made it extraordinary is the cast. The cast, especially Annette Bening, Jodie Foster, and Rhys Ifans. I mean, come on. I mean, these are just powerhouses of acting, as I mentioned earlier. And honestly, without Annette Bening in this role, the movie would not have been the same. You need these kinds of actresses and actors to be these characters. And what I also really enjoyed about the movie was that it was about a 60-year-old woman. When do you watch movies where a 60-year-old woman is the main character? It barely happens. And it was refreshing. It was nice. And yes, older women and older people also have stories to tell. And especially, I mean, come on, this story is crazy amazing. So, yeah, thank you for making this movie because it was inspiring. Yeah, but again, Annette Bening was so great. I mean, I love her. Who doesn't love her? She's awesome. And everyone loves Jodie Foster anyway. And I just got to know Rhys Ifans in House of the Dragon. And I know that's embarrassing because he's been around for a long time, but you can't know everyone. So it's fine. But I like him now and I know him now. And I'm really happy that I watched him in House of the Dragon first because now I was like, oh, it's the guy from House of the Dragon. So yeah, he was also very good. But Annette Bening, oh my God, like the physicality of the movie, insane to me, how she prepared, how she did it, how she just made this all happen. But also the emotional part and the dialogue, the way she portrayed Diana, it was awesome. I really liked it. So she really managed to make Diana a very charismatic and determined person, a strong person, of course, who shows perseverance and courage and endurance of what the human body can actually do, something you would never be able to imagine. But I also understand that some people say she's quite the unlikable person. I don't think she's that unlikable. She's very determined, and I know that threatens a lot of people. I think a lot of people are threatened by women who have success, who achieve things. And that's not the reason why I think she was kind of unlikable at times. Definitely not overall. I think she was a very impressive person and someone who you can learn a lot from. But she was determined to achieve this swim. And throughout this movie, I was like, why? I mean, I get that at a certain age, or I don't know if it's age related, but the movie made it seem that way, that she was questioning her choices, that she was bored, that she liked the thrill, that she really wanted to prove to herself that she could do that swim. And I understand that, especially, she has failed before. She has tried and failed before when she was younger. But why did she have to do this? She did somewhat put other people into some sense of danger. It wasn't dramatic as far as I understand, but a lot of people put a lot of strength and determination and time and energy into her achieving this. And she had to try, I think, like 3 or 4 times when she was that age. So when she was around 60 years old. She had tried before when she was, I think, around 30, but when she was around 60 years old, she tried 4 times. And she failed 3 out of the 4, and it's great that she succeeded at the end of the day. But she asked all of these people. Of course, they decided willingly to just do this with her. But yeah, I kept asking myself, why would you want to put yourself and your life and, at the end of the day, also all of these other people in that kind of danger? For what? But maybe it's just this kind of, I really need to prove this to myself that I can do this. And if I have people volunteering and accompanying me, then I'm just going to take him up on this offer and I'm just going to do it. So maybe this is just how she did it. But again, I don't think she was unlikable. She was harsh sometimes. She was very determined and very eager to really do that and really make all of this happen. And I think it's also something that, it's an interpersonal thing. All of the people involved, it's their free will to say, I'm done with you. So they didn't. But yeah, what was the purpose of it all? That is probably the question I had. I kept asking myself, why would I put myself in that scenario? Why would I put others in that scenario? And what is the purpose of it all? And maybe it's just breaking her own personal record. Maybe it's proving things to herself. Maybe it's just doing something crazy. It could be all of that. But I get when people are like, okay, but why? Why would you want to do that? Why would she just do that? But yeah, she did. So she will have her reasons. And overall, I just wanted to say that I really liked the themes of this movie. So, of course, it was a great film about sticking to your goals and your principles. And also, I really enjoyed the themes of friendship and love. So, you have Diana and her friend Bonnie, who also acted as her coach for this mission. And honestly, the trust and the intimacy and the level of closeness they needed to have to pull this off is just such a great portrayal of female friendship and love. And I really enjoyed the portrayal of these two women. I also really liked the somewhat, rough friendship she shared with Rhys Ifans' character. And I also really liked that. But the two strong women in the center of the story, it was just great. It was great to watch. Now, regarding the historical accuracy of the movie, I know, of course, there were some changes that were made. It always happens. It's fine. Historical accuracy is not the highest priority in movie making. I understand that. But I don't know if you know anything about Diana NYAD's story, but just as a little disclaimer, this swim from Cuba to Florida, which she finally managed to do, was never formally ratified. And that was due to the lack of independent observers and incomplete records. And I think, if I remember correctly, they do tell you that at the end of the movie. But that was a big disappointment for me. I was like, oh my God, it's incredible what she achieved. Now, reading up on her story, it felt like, I don't know, I really want to believe that she really pulled this off. If she didn't, I mean, I don't know. I guess no one can prove it. But yeah, it felt like a very disappointing thing at the end of the movie, if I'm being really honest. But I think the movie was as somewhat accurate as it could have been. Now that we know that it's never been formally ratified, it just feels like there's so much room for interpretation. And, like despite the random normal movie interpretation that you get where nothing is really ever fully historically accurate, I don't know, it left somewhat of a bitter taste in my mouth. And I didn't appreciate that. I didn't see it coming. I thought, oh my God, I have never heard of that. It was such a great and crazy achievement. Why? But maybe that is why. But I also feel like the news should have probably reported on that, and maybe they did, and I just did not notice, and maybe I just didn't read or listen to anything about that. But it was a bittersweet ending, and it left me hanging a bit because I really wanted to believe that she managed to pull this off. But now that we don't know and it's somewhat speculation, we can never be sure, I guess. But that's actually not why we're talking about the movie. We're talking about the movie because of those two great actresses that have been nominated for their respective parts. And honestly, these nominations are well deserved. And if Annette Bening won this Oscar or Jodie Foster won this Oscar, I'd be super excited about it. All right, movie number 3 we're going to be talking about is Maestro. And I was really excited when I saw it had already come out because it was before the list of nominations had come out. And I really wanted to see this movie either way, even if it hadn't been nominated for any Oscars, but it really has been nominated quite a bit. So Maestro has been nominated for Best Picture, Bradley Cooper has been nominated for Best Actor, and Carey Mulligan for Best Supporting Actress. It's been nominated for cinematography, sound, original screenplay, and makeup and hairstyling. So that's quite the long list. And I can't really say I disagree with it. So before we go into the review part of this, I think we should talk about what the movie is about. So Maestro is about Leonard Bernstein. And the focal point of the movie is not his musical career, which I think I would have preferred, to be honest, but his relationship and marriage to his wife, Felicia. And some go as far as to say that Felicia is actually the main character of the movie. But then, when you look at the nominations, and I agree with that, you can see that she is a supporting character in the movie. The main focus is still on Leonard Bernstein, but it's definitely about their marriage, relationship, and his private life instead of his musical career. It's, of course, part of the movie because you can't leave it out. And for a musical nerd like me, there were still enough musical moments to enjoy as well. But yeah, it's definitely about their relationship and the family dynamics. If I haven't stressed this enough, this review definitely contains spoilers. So if you haven't seen Maestro yet, please don't be disappointed because I'm going to talk plainly about the plot now. This movie does not only deal with Leonard and Felicia and how they meet and their blossoming relationship, but it definitely also deals with their entire marriage up to the point of her death. So her death also equals the end of the movie, which is why I think some people argue that she is the main character of the movie. And again, I can see that, but I can't really go along with it because he definitely is the focal point. But all in all, it deals with his queerness, it deals with their children, it deals with the time that they lived in, and that was a completely different time compared to the hopefully better times for queer people we live in today. But yeah, all the struggles that come with it and all the problems that arise with keeping homosexuality a secret. And again, it also deals with the musical aspect, but also the pressure and the stress and the workload put on Leonard Bernstein and how they manage to cope as a couple and as a family. But let's talk about details and specifics now. So the movie starts out with Leonard Bernstein sitting at the piano playing. And of course, it's emotional and the music immediately touches you. But what gave me chills was Bradley Cooper's transformation. I mean, the makeup and hairstyling Oscar nomination is so well deserved. I cannot stress this enough. There is a really long close-up of his face, and honestly, you cannot see, except maybe for the eyes. I think the eyes were the only giveaway that this is fake. They also show Bernstein at a very, older age. I think he's about maybe 70 in this first shot. I can't really point to the specific age, but he's old, he has wrinkles, and everything looks so real. And as I said, I'm a big Bernstein nerd. I used to watch many recordings on YouTube. There are lots and lots of videos of the recording sessions for West Side Story that he did with very famous opera singers and many other singers. And you can see the resemblance. No, it's not even the resemblance. He looks almost identical. Like, I forgot that I'm looking at Bradley Cooper. I think like 70% of the movie, it was crazy. I could not believe my eyes. Perfection, absolute perfection. And I think it's especially impressive when you think about the fact that the movie starts out with a very young Leonard Bernstein, except for the opening scene, and then transitions into a middle-aged man and into an older man, and it's just so seamless. They really know their stuff, and honestly, it's so very well executed. I am crossing my fingers so hard for them to win. I'm still so impressed. All right, let's move on from my favorite topic to other details that I noticed about the movie. So, unfortunately, and I'm just gonna admit this, throw it out here, I know a lot of people are gonna hate me for it, I don't like black and white movies. I honestly cannot see the appeal. I understand when it's movies that were just shot in black and white because there were no other options. Okay, if you like the classics, if you like older movies, it's fine. But we have the technology. And I also understand that for some plot devices, it's important and necessary, and it sometimes also moves the plot along and it helps and it supports. But for some movies, it's just not necessary. So for this one, it was like, okay, like I could see why they did it. But when it started in black and white, I was like, no, why are you doing this to me? Not again. So yeah, I wasn't a fan. It was fine. It stopped very soon. I was very relieved. So I think the majority of the movie is in color, so it's fine. But yeah, they use that, and I guess it's a preference and it's certainly not mine. If you like it, please enjoy. But it was a stylistic device that I didn't need for this movie. It didn't support enough or help enough or stress things they wanted to focus on enough. And also, there were many, many other things that helped with the plot. They didn't really need the black and white. But yeah, I guess, again, it's a preference, it's a choice. And if the director chooses to go black and white, then here we are. But I've just noticed that for all the movies coming out now, or movies that have come out in late 2023, a lot of movies are going back to black and white. And if you don't enjoy it, it really bothers you. So yeah, every time I see a black and white sequence or movie, it actually genuinely bothers me, and I'm always happy when I can see color again. So it's a personal thing, but yeah, I just wanted to mention it because that definitely was part of the movie review for me, that I was like, oh, black and white, why? But what I did like was the way they moved the camera, especially in the beginning. And I think it was most noticeable in the beginning of the movie, maybe because of the black and white and less distractions. No, but I think the way they literally moved the camera through the shots, it was glorious. So there's this one scene where you follow Leonard Bernstein through a hallway, but the camera's in front of the character. But then it just literally flies from sort of like an apartment that he's in into Carnegie Hall. And that is so impressive. And they did that several times. And I really enjoyed this because it really made it a little more creative. It made it a little more fluent, and it just gave it this extra pop of something that you were actually invested in. Like, oh my God, if I don't pay attention, I might completely miss where we are right now. And again, they did it several times. There's another transition from one location to another. I can't actually remember what specific location it was, but they did it through a perspective change and a costume change within that. And it was just great. So it made the plot move along much, much quicker, which is always a big plus, although I never had the feeling that Maestro was too long. However, I know a lot of people thought so. But yeah, that helped, especially in the beginning when you wanted to go through his like early years really quickly because you wanted to focus on the relationship he had to his wife. But first he had to meet his wife, but we needed to know a little bit of the backstory before they met. So this worked perfectly. And also, I just wanted to mention that Matt Bomer was part of the first part of Leonard Bernstein's life. I mean, of course, he did not play himself, but he acted in this movie, and I always appreciate Matt Bomer. I just saw Fellow Travelers, another great TV show that he was in, and I'm really happy that he appears more often on screen now because I think he's very talented. And yeah, he played a very tiny part, but I don't know, I realized that he was present. And some actors you see all the time, but you still can't remember their name or that they were even in that movie. So it's always nice to see familiar faces and to just notice someone being around. Even if they have like the tiniest part, they can sometimes leave their mark, and he did. So now that I've mentioned parts of the cast, we can talk about the rest of the cast for a moment. There were lots of famous faces, but I appreciated so many of them, especially Carey Mulligan, of course, because she is a treasure. She's awesome. She makes every movie she's in much, much better. So that's already, her nomination. I mean, that has to be a given. She was awesome. And there was also Maya Hawke, who I also really enjoy watching. And of course, Bradley Cooper, I've mentioned several times now. There were a couple of other famous faces, Matt Bomer, Sarah Silverman, and yeah, just a few people you recognized from here and there. And while we're name dropping, I just wanted to also mention that this movie was also directed and written by Bradley Cooper, but also produced by Martin Scorsese and Steven Spielberg. I mean, come on, he really brought out the big guns. Now, let's talk music, because I feel like this is my favorite part of the movie. Of course, for a Bernstein movie, you get a lot of Bernstein, and for this movie, I had my subtitles on, and actually, I'm now questioning why, because usually I only do that when I eat, and I definitely didn't, because I watched the movie really late at night. but I don't remember. So here we are. Let's move on. But yeah, every time new music appeared, the subtitles would just show you what kind of musical piece it was. And as I said, there was a lot of Bernstein. For my taste, there was not enough of West Side Story, which I love dearly, but it's okay. It made an appearance. It's fine. But I also really missed Glitter and Be Gay, which is also one of my favorites. And if you have not seen Kristen Chenoweth perform it, you have really missed out. So please, please check this out. It's awesome. She does the perfect interpretation of this song and she plays it so well too. Like the way she acts is just perfect. It's like it's written for her. Anyway, but what I also liked is that they included other music. So I remember that when I started this movie, I immediately was reminded of the REM song End of the World, and they scream Leonard Bernstein in one part of the song. And then when they played that song in the movie, I screamed. That was just awesome. It was so good. Because, yeah, I thought immediately about that song too. And then actually a very sad scene featured one of my favorite songs, which I had forgotten about a bit. Like, I don't regularly listen to that one. I actually think, is it a children's song? I haven't listened to it as a child, so I can't really tell, but maybe in other cultures it might be. But I'm talking about the Clapping Song by Shirley Ellis. And if you know that song, you know it is very strange, but they played it, as I said, in a very emotional and sad scene, but I couldn't help singing along. It was just one of these moments where you just remember all the crazy words. And yes, this song has crazy words, but I mean, yeah, it was a good moment because I also felt it and it felt like a core memory for that family. So it worked really well. I really liked the interpretation musically of the movie. You know, it really showed different aspects and perspectives of how music can make you feel. And I love that they use Bernstein so much because, of course, if you film a biopic about a conductor, I mean, come on, or like composer, I mean, he composed so much, then you have to feature mainly his music. But it was nice to include other songs as well that, you know, as I said, were maybe a core memory for the family or just featured Bernstein and his presence in pop culture and just culture in general. So yeah, it was awesome. And I really, really enjoyed how they used music and in what scenes and why. And it was very, very well done. Now let's focus on how they told the story. I know a lot of people criticized that the movie was too long, not way too long, but at least, you know, it could have been half an hour shorter. And I always agree with that because, of course, you know, when does a movie have a perfect time in which it tells a story? I mean, there's barely a movie where you're like, oh my God, yeah, that was exceptionally well timed. Because, yeah, of course, you can always cut things. But the thing is, you know, what you enjoy, what your preferences are, and what you prioritize might not be what other people prioritize and like. So it really depends on a personal preference, I think. But I can see that for some people, the movie was very slow because it was at some points. But I didn't really mind that much. I didn't think it was too bad. I've seen worse, so much worse. So it was fine. But yeah, it definitely wasn't a thrill to watch in terms of how excited are you all the time. It was very slow, but it worked for the story they told, especially, you know, and spoilers again, spoilers coming up, when Felicia gets sick and she's diagnosed with cancer. Those scenes are slow and sometimes they don't even need words. You know, you just see her or the dialogue isn't important and you just watch how Carey Mulligan portrays battling this disease and she's just exceptional at it. And I think these scenes have to be slow. If you portray cancer or a disease like that, like a really bad one where people really, really fight and it's a fight every day, you know, this is hard and it's not easy to portray. It's not easy to film. So I think it's really nice when an actor and actress is given the room to just let it all out. And I think Bradley Cooper and all the other people involved in directing this movie, they certainly made sure that she and other characters also had enough time for serious topics to be portrayed. There is another scene I remember very well between Leonard Bernstein and his daughter where she hears rumors about him being gay and he is told by his wife to deny it, and they have a conversation in the garden and it's very slow and there are moments when both of them do not say a word. But I think you need these moments for scenes that serious and important for the characters because they also do something with you watching. So if you enjoy these kinds of movies, if you enjoy dialogue work and just watching actors do their thing, I think Maestro is for you. If you want to be excited all the time, it might not be for you. But I think it's a personal preference. So at least it didn't bother me, which is always a good thing. I think the moment something doesn't bother me, it's already great. Yeah, again, I've seen so much worse. So this wasn't something that I would be criticizing, but it was certainly a slow movie. And yes, of course, it could have been a little bit shorter and no one would have really noticed or minded, I think. So yeah, I guess it's okay. So to sum up this review, I think Maestro, just like many others, is a very fine watch. You can easily enjoy it, but I think you have to be in the mood. I actually talked to two friends who have nothing to do with each other. They don't talk to each other, they don't even know each other. And both of them had started Maestro and then texted me. We had to stop. We were not in the right mood for this movie. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because that was before I had started watching it. And I was like, am I in the mood for it? I don't know. And when they both told me that separately, I was like, oh my God, what mood do you have to be in? What's happening? Because they used this specific expression. I was like, okay, that's very intriguing now. Then I started watching it and I couldn't really tell what they meant, both of them. But unfortunately, I had to watch it in two sittings. I didn't make it the first night because I was just exhausted. And when I started it again the next day, I realized, okay, you have to be in a certain mood. And I think the mood that I was in, a little bit artsy, a little bit ready for something creative, for something with, a lot of focus on music and nerdiness and all of that. I was ready for that kind of biopic, but the second night I really wasn't. So I still pushed through because I wanted to see how the movie ends. But I can now see that you do have to be in a mood for this movie. And I can't really tell what kind of mood it is. I just really can't even say what I felt like the second night I watched it and then finished it. But I felt much better about the movie the first night. So all of the things that I would criticize definitely have to do with the second part of the movie. And I did like how it ended. I think a lot of people stress that it ends on Felicia's face. And then you don't even see Leonard Bernstein in the final scene, which they again criticize because, it's still a matter of who is the main character of this movie. But I really like that because, as I said in the beginning, it's not even about his musical career, which is of course part of him and therefore part of the story, but it's about their marriage and their personal life. And so it made total sense to end on her face and not his. However, the second part and the second half of the movie for me did drag on more than the first. I think the first also included all of these cinematic things that I mentioned, the camera work, and I really enjoyed them and I missed them so much in the second half that, yeah, I can see that, you have to be in a slow burning mood, watching a slow movie, watching a movie that just gives you something, but you have to be ready to take it in. So I do understand their criticism about that now. I actually don't really know if either of them have finished it by now, so I have to go ask them and ask how they liked it in the end. But yeah, like summing up my thoughts and review about this Maestro movie, I feel like I'm still left wanting more. And either that is more focus on Leonard Bernstein's musical career because I really enjoyed that part of his life and that is what interests me more. But also learning about this relationship he had to his wife was an interesting facet I didn't know anything about. I actually didn't even know he was queer. So learning that really, educated me and gave me some more insights. And that's also, I think, why I did not give the movie a higher rating. I want to know more about his wife. She was an actress and then a mother, and she had so many stories to tell, I'm sure. And this is also why I'm such a big believer that she is not the main character of the movie, because I'm left wanting more. I want to know more about her. Who was she? I would have loved to see more from her perspective. And we were given some chunks of her perspective and her thoughts, but it was still focusing on Leonard, which again is fine. It's a choice they made. But I think this is why I cannot give the movie a higher rating, because I think I would like to know more about her and not just them together. I think individually there's so much more to explore about both characters, and that kind of left me wanting more. So it's a fine watch. It's a good movie. You will definitely enjoy it if you're in the right mood for it. But yeah, let's see how they do at the Oscars. Wow, that was fast. this is already the end of the episode. I mean, not that it was a short one, but here we are. Make sure to check out the upcoming episode, which will deal with the magnificent duo of Barbie and Oppenheimer. So yeah, I'm going to make a Barbenheimer episode because there's so much to say about these two great movies from the summer of 2023, and I can't wait to talk to you again on the next episode. Bye!